We have been sold the idea that we can build these toned looking physiques that are lean, strong, muscular, defined on next to no calories, in a calorie deficit, and that we can build all this lean muscle tissue in a calorie deficit. And that is just simply not the case. And I'm going to break that right down and also explain kind of the fundamentals of lean muscle building and how it isn't what it seems. And I feel like this is more common in the women's fitness space, less so than I see in the male fitness space. Like, we often see men bulking, dirty bulking. We hear all this in the men's space, and I feel like there isn't enough knowledge in the women's space. All we ever see thrown about is calorie deficit. How many times have we all entered a calorie deficit, got to a point where we've dropped calories lower and lower and still not achieved this toned physique? If anything, we've just kind of ended up looking smaller versions of ourselves, possibly just a bit more skinny fat, and sort of wondering, how is this achievable? And I feel like people are just quick to sell you a plan that is promising results that just aren't realistic. And I want to kind of set the record straight when it comes to building lean muscle tissue, because what nobody tells you about gaining lean muscle is it is not something that is done quickly. It's not easy, and it is most certainly not being built in a calorie deficit and only ever eating 1400 calories every single day for the rest of your life. And if you're someone who has just chronically been under eating for absolutely years, I feel like you're going to find this video super helpful. I want to get you out of that pattern of cutting and slashing your calories, feeling really lost, and also feeling like you're having to be so overly restrictive every single day. I've got you covered. I've been there myself. I've also seen many girlies in the exact same position as you, and you're not alone. So in this video, I'm going to break down the formula to start building muscle tissue that actually works without dirty bulks, without excess fat gain, how to know if a gaining phase is very much necessary for you. So if you're someone who has sat in a calorie deficit or just tried to kind of eat as little as possible for, could be 5 years, could be 2 years, but a really long time, like you've kind of stayed the same weight or thereabouts, and you feel like you're not really improving, you've managed to lose body fat, but you don't really see much definition in terms of visible abs, or you don't feel like you have much glute shape or structure, and you really want to, say, increase your actual strength, like say you've just plateaued in the gym, haven't really been able to increase your strength, just feeling a bit flat, like energy wise, you could have some hormone imbalances, and you've got this knowing that something needs to change. You just know you need to make a shift and change in your mindset, but you've not really been willing to get uncomfortable. Or maybe you've just started sitting with certain feelings and feeling a bit trapped in a lifestyle that it's just hard work to maintain a certain physique, and you're not even happy with it anyway. These are some of the warning signs that something needs to change, and maybe you do need to work on improving that actual muscle tissue, because so many of the bodies that you might be looking at online or seeing have no doubt got a lot of muscle tissue. Ooh. Have got a lot of muscle tissue underneath and that lean physique. And what you can do is enter these calorie deficits after calorie deficits and always have the same outcome, which is you just don't have enough muscle tissue underneath. You start thinking it's your hormones that are broken or your body's broken, when it's not that. It's just actual not having enough muscle tissue underneath in certain areas. And I think as women, we can think, oh, but I'm like happy with my muscle size, I don't want to get any bigger. Do not think that like adding more muscle tissue makes you look bigger. It's totally the opposite. Like, I'm someone who I did not used to train my arms, and my arms were always quite soft looking and big in my eyes, whereas when I started adding lean muscle tissue to my arms, now they're more sculpted than they've ever been. It's just reframing your mindset, because for so long we've been, I remember in PE when I was younger, my PE teacher said, oh, don't lift weights with your upper body because it'll make you big, and it's just so far from the truth. It's hard to put on muscle tissue, and you need to be in a surplus not just for a week but consistently over time to actually put on muscle tissue. And I think a lot of it, usually sometimes we mistake inflammation or an increase in calories too soon as fat gain, when it's usually just a lot of water weight or it's actual food volume in, say, your stomach that is the scale weight. And I think it's so easy to just quit too soon, as in you increase your calories for a couple of days, see the scale maybe shift quite a lot, or you're more watery, and then you just quit and you never really get anywhere, and you end up in the same cycle of just being stuck on super low calories, which is no fun because you feel limited, your energy's not great, you don't really progress with your training, with your lifts, and you don't really change, and years can go by like this. And I speak from experience, and I see this so commonly, and I want to get you out of that cycle. So I've broken this down into 7 points. There is a no BS approach, and let's get into the first one. Recomp has a limit. Body recomposition is basically the process where your scale weight stays the same and your actual body composition changes over time. Body recomp is so possible, you can make amazing progress whilst your scale is staying the same. However, if you are really wanting to build a foundation of new muscle mass and build muscle tissue, we need to be fueling that muscle in a surplus. There's different ways you can do small surpluses over time, but generally when you see people with amazing body recomposition results that you usually see before and afters on, say, Instagram, it's usually over a really extended period of time. Like, body recomposition is a much slower process than, say, entering a small calorie surplus over time. When you are body recomping, there's actually a small window. So for example, if you are untrained, as in you have never trained before, you step foot into a gym, you have got a good window of time where you can actually put on muscle mass and lose fat simultaneously. So you've got that small window of time, and it's called newbie gains. Same as, say, if you had, say, 6 months off training, a year off training, and you go back to training again, enter that window where you can do both at the same time. Whereas if you have been training consistently for years, you have most likely kind of exceeded your limit of this newbie gains phase, and this is when you need to stimulate the muscle further, and you're not going to see as much body recomposition as when you first entered the gym, which you'll probably seen in yourself. And I just feel like people aren't honest enough about this, but you won't build significant muscle tissue without a calorie surplus of some sort. It doesn't need to be a huge calorie surplus, which we'll get further into in this video. Think of bodybuilders. You don't see a bodybuilder sitting at maintenance and being able to put on a lot of tissue, for example. You predominantly see them entering big push-ups in terms of increasing calories, and then also big cuts. They're the most specialist people. Like, why would they do these up and down phases if it was as easy as just staying at maintenance and being able to put on a lot of muscle tissue? So that's kind of body recomposition. I can do a whole nother video on body recomp. I really think there's a time and place to be sat at around maintenance calories and recomping. It's not always about always being in either a calorie surplus or calorie deficit. Second thing that I'm pretty sure we've all probably done at some stage is dirty bulking is not the answer. So I feel like this was more of a thing maybe 5 years ago when dirty bulking was a thing. That was just like eating as many calories as you physically possibly could, and obviously what comes with that is a lot of excess fat gain, and it usually just means zero structure, no strategy, no kind of tracking in any way, shape or form. And another thing that I feel like there's misconceptions with bulking and that can create a lot of fear, more so in women, is that thinking when you are entering a bulk you're just going to automatically get fat. I also do not believe in entering a gaining or bulking phase that does mean that you just put on extra body fat, because you can only put on a certain amount of muscle tissue within a certain time frame. So there's no point, say, entering a huge surplus, because a lot of that is just going to be fat gain, and it's going to also mean that you will probably quit within a couple of weeks. So it's always much better doing things in a gradual way, in a way that isn't too slow, because I know I've done that in the past. I've entered too small of a surplus that I'm not really like gaining enough, or I've been on the other end of the spectrum. So it's about finding that middle ground and also just reframing how you look at that phase. The third thing is a surplus phase is so much harder than a calorie deficit. Now, I say this with my chest, but a calorie deficit and losing fat is so much easier. If you think how hard it is to actually put on muscle tissue than it is to lose overall body fat, and consistency with your actual training quality, because when we're in a calorie deficit, so that is when we're trying to lose overall body fat, we're not really putting on much muscle mass, we're just trying to retain as much actual muscle during that phase. When we're in a calorie surplus, you want to be really stimulating, using that food for fuel and really pushing yourself in your training sessions in order to add in that muscle tissue, and also using that time to really push in your sessions, because usually in a calorie deficit our training can start to plateau in terms of like it's going to be harder to maintain strength, whereas when we're in a gaining phase we've got all that extra energy that we can put into our sessions. So it's like looking at phases in kind of a different way. And with fat loss, that gives you quick wins. So say if you're entering a 4 to 12 week fat loss phase, each week you're seeing your body change and you're seeing new kind of like lean parts that you might have never seen before. It's very rewarding, as in like you're seeing that instant gratification, whereas muscle building is a much slower process, so you're not getting that same satisfaction. But you really need to switch your mindset on this, and this is something that I've struggled with for years and why I feel like I stuck in my comfort zone and didn't enter a phase like this. Something else that really helps with the mindset side, which we'll get into in a second, is fat can always be lost. Like, it's way harder to gain muscle and it's much easier to lose fat. Like, don't feel like you're entering a phase is thinking, oh my gosh, this is it, I'm just gonna have excess fat. Like, fat is something that can always be lost. Fourth thing is the mindset shift is a non-negotiable. Now, it's fine you watching this video, you might just go straight over your head, but it needs to hit with you and you need to make the decision. It's not gonna come from just overnight, but I'd really recommend just look at some of your beliefs right now around weight gain and the scale. Where is this coming from? Why do you feel so attached to a certain scale weight? What do you think is going to happen if you go above that scale weight? Is it that you think people are not going to love you as much? Like, what are these limiting beliefs that are coming up? Is it from something that is not actually objectively true from maybe when you were 14, 15 years old? And this is a real deep one. Are you putting your worth on a set scale weight? I'm the first person, like, I believe in both performance goals and aesthetic goals. Like, I think it's great to want to change your body and sculpt. Like, I love bodybuilding, for example. I love sculpting your physique in a certain way, but if all your identity and worth is coming from how you look in the mirror, it's something that it really needs addressing, because that is what keeps you kind of stuck. Think of all you have to gain. You're not committing to it for life. Fat can always be lost. Like, is that the thing we're fearing? Like a bit of fat gain, like a slight bit of fat gain, which is you're probably not going to even notice. Like, I gained 4.5 kg from my bodybuilding show, which I needed to do. Of course, that was hard, but I preferred my body with the weight gain. And sometimes we get so in our heads thinking that you're gonna not like what you see, but if you're not happy with where you are now, like, think what you could gain. I really don't want you to be chasing a physique that just isn't right for your lifestyle or body type, because you could be chasing a body that isn't even realistic, as in, like, you wouldn't actually have energy to socialize because you'd be having to meet a crazy amount of steps every single day. It could possibly mean that you wouldn't be the same personality-wise, because your hormones could be compromised, because your body can't function at a certain body weight. Whereas if you start adding muscle tissue to your frame, you're going to be visually leaner. In time, it's not going to be instant, but you're going to appear visually leaner because you've got more of a foundation under there, whereas you're not having to cut right down to super low calories to not be able to maintain something anyway, because you just simply would get ill because you haven't got that foundation of muscle mass underneath that. Does that make sense? It's quite a lot to compress, and I'm trying to make it in just like a simplified way that I kind of feel like my younger self needed to hear. Like, that is my intention with this video. Not to scare you, not to force anything, but just to open your mind up a bit, because I wish I had this video when I was, I'd say 18, 19, and trying to shrink myself into a version of myself that just wouldn't have worked anyway. I wouldn't have even been happy with. Now is the time to, like, address those older habits, and your body knows. Like, you start getting nudges when things don't feel right. You know, with me, I had a stage in my life I was so undisciplined, and I needed to be disciplined with my, like, eating habits, and that expanded me. Whereas if you're finding certain habits are starting to constrict you, make you feel small, and like things are just getting sticky and have got out of alignment, like, it's important to listen to yourself and your body. Fifth one is a little bit of a different one. Protect your energy. So there is such a weird thing with weight and it being a conversation. Like, people be like, oh, you've lost weight, or people are so quick to discuss things. I have it all the time. I think maybe because I am in the fitness space as well, like, people think it's just like an open conversation they can have, and half the time people don't mean anything by it. But just last week at dinner, I met with someone. Last time they saw me was just straight after a competition, the bodybuilding competition I did, where I was at the leanest I'd ever been. Obviously that was not a sustainable weight, and they were like, wow, like, you're not as shredded anymore. And previous me would have probably, like, really taken that on and, like, been hurt by that. Whereas, like, I've worked so much on my mindset, and, like, that, it goes over my head, but it does make me think, like, if someone said that to someone who isn't in that headspace, like, that would really rock someone. You don't need to explain your goals to anyone, and I'd really challenge you to take your power back. Like, you don't need to ask for approval. You don't need to go and say to a friend, I'm wanting to gain muscle now. Like, it doesn't need to be a conversation. You can change that conversation. You can totally own your own energy, and, like, if it is something that you're just sort of grounded into and getting comfortable with, like, I would recommend keeping certain things to yourself. You don't need to, it's not a secret or anything like that, but just don't make it a conversation that is open for discussion. Just say, oh, actually, do you mind if we talk about something else? And getting a little bit uncomfortable with that. Like, sometimes I think we do it without realizing, but we'll sort of look for approval with our friends, with our family, and say, oh, I'm entering this phase. And then that's when we can get a lot of doubt come in, and making sure you're doing this for you and not having external people's opinions, because they're not living in your body, they're not living your lifestyle. They might not know what it's taken from you, you know? And this is your journey, not theirs. So no one else needs to understand why you're doing something for you, because you're the one at the end of the day who eats the food that you want to eat every day. You spend the most time with you. Like, you need to be happiest. Like, make sure it is something that you genuinely really want to do, want to commit to. The sixth thing is, you do not need to do this on your own. I know years ago when I've done these kind of failed attempts of building phases, it's usually when I've had no kind of strategy, no accountability, and I've literally quit after a couple of days because I I felt uncomfortable. I ate a little bit more and then felt very bloated and thought, oh my God, this is not for me. I'm just gonna balloon up in a week or 2 weeks, which is exactly why I created the Flowness Club, which is where you get actual structure, programming, accountability, and everything in one place. So this is where I host all my recipes, and you're joining an actual team of other girlies on the exact same journey as you, which is exactly what I felt like was missing. And I spent, I think it was like 6 years in these cycles, feeling very sort of on my own, and I didn't really have anyone around me that was doing the same things or like had the same goals. And this has been the power of the Flowness Club, because it is a space where we're all working to level up on all kinds of levels, have very different lifestyles. We've got some girlies who are on night shifts, some girlies across the globe, but we all have the same thing in common and we're all part of a team. So if you feel like you need help with your programming, need help with structuring how to do a certain phase like this, and also need that skin in the game so that you're not doing this on your own, and we will actually probably consistently stick to it because you can see other girlies on the same path as you. It's also where I share a lot of my kind of ups and downs too, and has been so therapeutic for me since launching. So what I've done is made sure Flowness Club gives you the actual roadmap, so how to eat, because that's one thing I struggle with. It's like, how do you time your meals? And that makes a big difference, especially in a phase like this. Like, I want you to be able to stick to this for a good amount of time to make good progress and to get you out of these cycles. Like, that is my approach totally, and it's not done in restrictive or drastic ways. It's more about how can you create something that you can actually keep to, that's realistic for your lifestyle, no matter what times and hours you work. And if you're a mum, if you're just on the go at all times, like, this can work for you. If that sounds like something you'd be interested in, it'll be in the top line of this video's description. Let's get into the actual lean gains formula. So we want to be aiming for around 0.2 to 0.3 kg gain per week, which is kind of a sweet spot where your body composition, so how you're looking, isn't compromised. Of course, there'll be a little fat gain, but this all depends on genetics and where like you're currently at now. My kind of strategy and approach is entering for a gaining phase, 8 to 12 weeks. I would recommend having a time frame rather than just leaving it open-ended, because then you're thinking, oh my God, am I just going to turn into a house? You know, like, it's nice having an end frame and just gives you like that clear guideline, and it goes really quick as well. And then what I would recommend is having a deload or a total week off after this first phase. If you're doing it for 12 weeks, that is a gain of 1.6 kg to 2.4 kg total. Now, something to mention is in your first, obviously, 1 to 2 weeks, you're going to be kind of gauging what your more surplus calories actually are. So it does take some kind of working out. Like, my first week of gain, I gained 0.6 kg. A lot of that is kind of just actual food volume, because I've increased my, say, carbs and have more food on my actual stomach, as well as like glycogen in my muscles because I've filled them up. But it levels out after about 2 weeks, and if not, you can just keep it simple. You can just tweak your calories slightly if your rate of gain is too high, but do give it time and don't panic at first, because it's just like any change in our bodies, you know. And what I do to track my rate of gain is I weigh myself, and then after you've done, say, a 12-week block or 8-week block, you might think, oh, actually I've not put on too much body fat, I feel quite good, like I managed to build my legs, or, you know, it just depends where you're at with everything, how consistent you've been over that time. You could move into a 4 to 6 week fat loss phase after you've taken maybe a deload, because you'll probably be fatigued if you've definitely been pushing, you know, like 4 to 5 gym sessions over that whole thing. You can either repeat that cycle of another gaining phase or just sit at maintenance. Say after that fat loss phase you're pretty happy, you just want to sit around maintenance with the amount of muscle you put on. And of course our genetics will play such a huge role in this, but it is really the mindset. Like, I think it's all in our mind, your strategy as well. So that's kind of the formula, and then I break this all down inside the Flowness Club. So if you need help with your actual programming and nutrition side of things, also help finding your actual, say, your maintenance calories and surplus calories, I take you through it step by step, so there's no guesswork, because that's the hardest thing, like figuring this all out. And this is where you can get the support, which is definitely going to set you up for the most success. And what I've done is put all of this into my brand new program, Shape and Flow. So this is the exact program that I am following to build lean muscle for these next 8 weeks. It takes you through everything you need, so how to calculate your unique macros. You have all the accountability, structure and support. I finished my first week and feeling so much better. I've actually managed to increase in my lifts, in my training, and there's so much you gain, as well as just having more flexibility with eating out and all of this amazing stuff. So I hope this video has been really useful for you and insightful. I'm so proud of you for making it this far in the video, because that was a lot of info to get through. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you so much, and I can't wait to see you in the next video.